Um, so I was going to talk about some of the planning stuff, like prioritizing all the issues we got from the reef planning. But since we have sort of very low attendance today, I think we can just not do that today, and we'll just go over these minor topics we have, and we'll do the brief stuff next week or some other week.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, so I think you put all these in here, Rido. Do you want to talk about these issues?
Yeah, basically, these issues I put are related to some problems I was investigating in the last days. The first of them is the usage we give right now to the configuration file, the main configuration file, get it at etc ceph.conf. So I was not sure how important is this file since the monitor is already using its own configuration. And as I understood from Adam, most of the daemons are just getting their information from the monster. So I was wondering to which point we really need um, the configuration file and what is the usage with the modern stuff based on containers.
Yeah, so I think like I was saying then or before, talking in chat, the main thing we do with them now is just we need them for the mon addresses because you can't do a proper shell command unless you know where the IPs of the monitors, or at least one of the monitors is. Um, and so you need the config for that. That's why we put them all in all those admin hosts, is so you can do shell commands there and connect to the cluster. Um, Before they were containerized, I'm pretty sure they used to actually just read from ceph.conf on the host directly, and daemons would get all their configs from there, and so it was super important to fill it out. But nowadays, in the containerized one will usually what we'll do, because they'll still be looking sometimes in ceph.conf, but they don't, instead of just having them directly use one on the host, we usually will give them their own config and then mount it into the container in the right spot. That's what that mon config we are talking about, how they have their own. Um, that's where it's getting that from, is we're putting it there so that we can then mount it into ceph.conf inside the mon container. And so as for the actual one on the host, it's mostly just for that purpose now of doing shell commands. Um, it doesn't matter as much now that we're containerized and the mon store has all the config options in it.
Yeah, I see. I think maybe in the long run, and supposing that we'll have the configuration available per cluster on the varlib, sorry, Ceph, fsid, config, new directory, then probably at some point we will not need this file anymore.
It's possible, yeah, one day we'll be able to get rid of it. We'll have to see, because I think there are still some things that will try to use it. And obviously, we still look for it as like our default in certain places as well. Um, I'm not sure if we'll be able to completely remove it anytime soon, because I don't know. There's probably some legacy things that still look at it. I don't know what all of them are. I think there may be some Ceph volume stuff that still uses it. Uh,
Mhm.
at least I think I remember there was some issue where there was some setting that they wanted to set for Ceph volume command, but you actually couldn't set it in the mon store. There was no option for it there, and so the only way to do it was to run Ceph volume on the host, and you had to mount or you have Ceph volume on the host with that option in the ceph.conf. Um, Now we can also do Ceph volume commands uh, in a container, and so you could technically mount an ceph.conf with that stuff into the container instead of having the one in the host have the options.
Yeah,
So you could probably get around it, but I don't know. I'm not sure we're going to be able to totally remove it anytime soon. But yeah, it's definitely its importance has sort of been diminished. We don't need to worry about it too much anymore.
yeah.
Is
This
there any
comes
specific
basically,
reason you what? I keep going.
yeah, basically this comes because I was investigating this minimize Ceph configuration issue. which seems to be broken right now because it just overwrites the file content just after the bootstrap. And I
Yeah.
didn't really understood why this user was using or wants the complete configuration file. Maybe he had an old version of Ceph.
Is there a tracker for this issue?
Yes, I can put it. Give me a second.
Not sure exactly what this person was trying to do. I never really understand when anyone ever is using that flag. That flag has always been there, but I don't
I
really understand the use case
I
for it.
put it on the pad just after the entry of the minimize config. Can put it here as well.
Yeah, even Sebastian's first comment on there is why do you need a non-minimized
Yeah,
config? What is their reason? They just like it more, it seems like, than the central database.
convenient for quick check of current configuration parameters and also for easily monitoring application parameters when using RPD mirror.
Yeah, so they have some reasons, I guess, they want to do it, that they're, I guess, using directly that config. My sort of idea for dealing with that as far as the bootstrap flag, getting that working, was just to not apply the admin label if they pass that flag, because then we won't overwrite it, basically. If you don't pass it. That's the only reason we're overwriting is we have that the bootstrap host automatically gets marked as one that we need to manage the conf on, and so we overwrite the conf on those hosts.
And what are the secondary effects of not putting this label on the
We
bootstrap
won't
host?
update the conf on the host or the keyring on the host. Um, so like the admin keyring, that's you we put in etcceph when we bootstrap, we write there. Um, in the config file, etcceph.conf, on the hosts that are marked admin, we write out a basic version of that.
Mhm.
And basically the idea of it is that any host that has those two things on it, you can then shell into the cluster with that information. So if we don't write it there, if they were to say move all their monitors around, and so like whatever mon addresses were in that class, that config were not right anymore, and there were no mons on that host to infer from, then they wouldn't connect to the cluster from that host, or they'd have to like manually provide what those addresses are, because we're not managing it for them. But the thing is, if they're going to use the conf themselves and they want to have full control over all of that stuff, then I mean, I think we should be able to let them. Like, that should be an option. So,
Yeah.
yes, we can't really be overwriting their conf if they want the full control over it. And really, the only time where we sort of do it ourselves, where we just mark a host as like we're going to manage this one instead of the user having to explicitly do it, is in the bootstrap with that admin label. So if we just don't do it in that one specific case when they ask to not minimize the config, then any other chance where we'd be doing that sort of stuff, they'd have to specifically tell us to do it, in which
Yeah.
case, can't really complain.
And I'm wondering if the users in this case will expect to have like the complete configuration file only on the host that was used for the bootstrap, or they are expected to have the same configuration file in all
Yeah.
the nodes.
Well, the way it used to work is it wasn't like automatically copied to all the hosts or anything, I don't think. So if they're going to manually maintain it like that, I think they would expect they have to put it on all the hosts. And also, it could be different on all the hosts. They don't necessarily want an identical one on all the hosts either. And that's what they're
Mhm.
talking about with their replication settings, is that and why they don't like the normal database is they want different settings on each host.
Oh, I see.
Now you can do that with the database as well. The database allows host granularity when you set config settings. If you know how to system where you have like the global setting, then you have like for a daemon type, there's also like specific daemon or a
Mhm.
daemon host combination, whatever. So you can do all that stuff with the database as well. But I guess they prefer to use the config file. Maybe they're just used to it. Um, Either way, it's that's up to them. They want to do that, but I think all we really need to do on our side is make sure we don't overwrite the config if they specifically ask us not to do that, and that really just means don't add the admin label to the first host if
Mhm.
they does this flag.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Anything else for that topic? Or I guess the first two points are sort of the same topic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they are the same. And just fix it typo on the third line.
Makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll move to that one then. So, Reddit, you want to introduce this topic as well?
Yeah. So we have had a lot of issues, especially in environments after a Ceph upgrade, where we have a mix of old images and new images. And right now, the algorithm we use to infer the Ceph image is very basic. We just pick the latest one. The problem comes when we have a mix of registries. At least that was what I saw on a bunch of them. When you have a mix of registries, most recent image may be the old one because you just pick image from different registries and each one of them has a different creation date. So my proposal is, and I was also discussing this with Adam, is why not use the daemons because you have this information. So why not use the Ceph daemons in order to infer the image if possible? If not, then we just fall back to the legacy behavior to just pick the latest one because we can't do much in this case. If you can add something on there.
Yeah. So my
Like to.
thoughts were basically that we treat it exactly the same we do for inferring the config. So we have actually like a priority list for that. Like there's the explicit config, if you provide it, and we use that one out of always. There's the name flag for the daemons that we use. We use that daemons config if you provide that. Then it's the monitors, and I think we also now have there's the FSID directory conf, and then there's the Ceph conf. So we have this whole like list of things, and like this one takes priority over this one, and we just go down the line until we find one that matches, um, or we give up, I guess, if there's none of them. But the idea was we could do a similar thing with the daemon type or the image name, where the default would or the highest priority one would maybe like if there's a monitor on the host and we know the FSID, like if we've already inferred the FSID. If we find a monitor that where the FSID matches, we can use that one. Same with the managers; those ones should be pretty high priority. And then like I guess OSDs would be third, and then after that, it really just I like all the other daemons are sort of equal in terms of how high priority we do. And then if there's no daemons on the host, I guess you would then have to go back to our old strategies of just picking the most recent one.
Exactly.
So can I ask, what is the, you're trying to select an image. What is this image to be used for?
Just a shell. Um,
Oh, this is just shell.
I think that's what they're asking for, or are they simply trying to use some sort of tooling?
Yes. Yeah, this is normally the Ceph image we use for Ceph ADM shell, and
Okay.
from there we run other commands.
Yes. In that case, I think what Adam said just now is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we also have the same way we do for the config stuff. We have the option to pass that name argument, and so you
Yeah.
can say which daemon you want. So that would be pretty high priority. And then if they just say the dash dash image flag, that obviously is the highest priority. And
Mm-hmm.
then we could go down the daemons and the that like sort of list of like mon manager OSD, the importance list, and any other daemon, and then we go back to most recent one that we can find.
Right, right. Because in this case, you don't want to beg the user for lots of information.
Yeah,
You
like if
want
you want to specifically
to,
say like I want this image in my shell, like we have that option. And if you want to say like I want this specific daemon name, I want it to match that daemon, we have that option. And other than that, we'll do like a best attempt guess um, based on what
Yeah.
daemons you have on the host.
Something better than just picking the recents, which would not be the latest in
Yeah.
several upgrade scenarios.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we can see like if people have whatever reason have some newer Pacific image, then like the Quincy image they're currently using, it'll use the old Pacific one, even though the image is an older version. And we can't really do it by version just because getting the version is still super slow. We don't have a good way to do that. You'd have to exec into the container and do like a Ceph version call right now. And imagine if you had to do that. So you had like 7 different Ceph images on your host. We had to check all of them to make sure. Like
Yeah.
it would be too much. So.
Just as a note, I tried this to get the Ceph version by just running the image, and sometimes it works, sometimes it just gets an error because for whatever reason in that image you can't get
Yeah,
the version.
I think that's why. I think even if you look at the ls code, the daemon ls or list daemons, whatever it is in
Mhm.
the FIDM binary, I think it tries a few different ways to get version for a bunch of different things. But I know there's always the fallback that you have to have, just because sometimes it's all you can do is to just exec into the container and do some sort of call to get the version. Um, so you always gotta have to prepare for the possibility you have to do that for all of your images. So we really only want to do that when we have to, which is for ls you have to because you want to get the version. That's one of the important things. But for a shell command, it'd be nice if we could avoid doing that because you don't want the shell command to take 20 seconds to start up, especially if it's
Yeah,
going to end up. We could have picked a reasonable option by default anyway without having done that.
yeah. The implementation I'm working on right now is basically just run the underlying Podman or Docker to inspect the images, so it should be relatively quick.
Yeah, and Podman inspect because you can batch those. I don't remember for sure. I don't remember. Yeah, even with like a Podman PS or Podman inspects, they're much quicker than any sort of Podman exec. Want to be doing those. So usually those ones are okay.
Should see the code, I think. And the underlying it uses Podman inspect of the container. I think this way we will solve a lot of these issues, and in general, in the modern Ceph, we will have the shell synchronized with the monitor or whatever daemon is running on the host.
Yeah. And if we're pulling the config from the monitors, you might as well pull the image. The
Yeah,
only time where you wouldn't want that is when I guess you're in the middle of upgrade, you haven't upgraded your monitors or something. But in which case, like that's weird scenario, you could pass the image flag if you really needed to. I think it's unlikely that they would have a newer image than whatever their
yeah.
monitors are on because those are so early in the upgrade process.
I'm putting the changes over the other PR I had in progress, the one that shows the tag and the date. So we show a lot of information to the user. I mean, we
Okay,
will see which image he's using.
that makes sense. I'm still sort of waiting. I think Mike will be back tomorrow. I'm still waiting to see if didn't he review that pull request?
Yeah, it's open. I can
I thought
put it.
Mike did look at it and commented.
Yeah, I saw his comment. He basically asked if we can edit the image ID. I think which is a good idea, but I also think that having the creation dates could be helpful also some scenarios. Because in
Yeah,
this case, for example, in the case of this guy who reported the issue on that parade, I basically saw the creation date that was more recent than the Quincy, which is weird because Pacific is old, older than Quincy.
yeah. I mean, if anything, maybe we want to just add all three. Would it take the line too long if we just also put the image
Uh,
ID in?
I am using the short ID just to avoid putting the large one.
Yeah, I think that's
Just
fine.
using the
Even the
short
short one
one.
should be
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, because
Um,
that the one you get when you run Podman images, you get the short one.
yeah. So yeah, if we right now I'm assuming it has just the tag and the date, and he wants also if we just also add in the ID, the short
Yeah,
name, the short ID. I don't see any reason
the
not to.
yeah, the message would be something like using Ceph image with ID and tag created on whatever date, and then you
Yeah,
get the digest, the long one.
yeah. 'Cause it would make the line a little bit longer, but I don't think it'd be a big deal, and it's nice to have that information there so we know.
Yeah.
So I'd be for just doing all three of them. And then the one thing I was kind of curious about with this pull request was those testing with that case with like it just ends with the @ sign. We still need that test case and all that.
I introduced some unit testing for that, but since I wasn't sure at the beginning what this was really testing or what was checking for, it's like checking for image that knows has pages at the end.
Yeah.
I have to refresh this because in weeks since I worked on it.
But that was the main thing I kind of wanted Mike's review on was what that test was and is it safe to get rid of that test or is that a use case we should be worried about that we're gonna get an image that just ends in an @ sign?
Yeah.
Does that test fail now if you just that @ sign that case for these changes? Or do you just want to have a new test?
I can edit some new test
And I'm wondering if we could leave that test there.
or just use the same one with the different, added a new one.
Yeah, just
Not
add a new
new
one, but
one,
not
new
remove
entry.
the old
Yeah,
one.
new entry in the same. Yeah, new
Because
entry in
if
the
we
same
leave the
test.
old test and we just add a new test, and there can't be any complaints really about what we're doing. We'll just be adding
Yeah,
more testing functionality. Maybe there's something we could do, and then we know for sure that we're not missing an important test. Is just so add a new test that does whatever you're testing now, and then just leave that old test in as long as I assume it's passing. I hope it still be passing.
yeah, it's
Um,
passing.
all right, so leave that one in, and then we'll add that one with the weird cases that the old test had,
Yeah.
just so we're covering everything, and then just add the image ID to the output, and I feel like everything anyone has with that PR would be covered. Good spot.
Yeah, it would be good also to test like the priority, the same we do with the configuration, just to make sure that if we have the daemons, then we pick the daemons. If we don't have the daemons, then we fall back to the old mechanism.
Yeah, I kind of forgot how we got to that PR. The conversation was that we were talking about the other change. Yeah, if you add that stuff in, then definitely, that should have unit tests as well.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Anything else on that topic anyone wants to say? Referring the images.
Nothing more from my side, at least.
All right. I see there's this other stuff here.
That was me. I added that yesterday accidentally under the wrong date.
Okay.
So you might not have seen it when you created the
Yeah.
initial.
I saw another April 12th, and I thought it was the APAC April 12th. I was like, oh,
No,
what are they talking about
I
there?
I was fighting with Etherpad. I haven't used it enough to get used to how it formats things, and so I tried to copy and paste the old date title so it wouldn't lose the formatting, and then I forgot to go back and change the actual number.
No.
Anyway, that's a long story for a stupid little mistake. So this topic we could maybe save until next week, especially since I might want to kind of go talk to Mike a little bit more and understand where he was at with his work with the binary part of it. But the gist is, and I'll just share this now, and we don't need to go into details, is because this is like a long thing, like as you mentioned last week, it's a multi-stage thing, and you're concerned about doing a lot of it early in the cycle because that will make backports difficult, blah, blah, blah. My suggestion is let's come up with a game plan and document the phases and stuff so that we know when things need to get done. It's one of these things that before Sebastian left, he kept bringing up to me. So I feel like I don't want this to just get a slip and end up not getting prioritized or whatever. So
Yeah. So it
if you
already kind
think,
of happened once.
yeah, And the other thing is like it would be nice. I think you see one of the bullets I have is like maybe we could start doing some of the work earlier if we had like a branch where people could file their PRs against this special like Ceph ADM split up or whatever you want to call it, as opposed to having to get everything into master or reef or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good, interesting idea. I guess we'd have to see how we want to work it, because there is
Mm-hmm.
still the issue of if we're making changes, we know we want to backport in master,
Right.
and we want to make them on the real binary so we can backport them easier. But then we
Yep.
also want to have that changes be present because we don't want to like have changes missing in the new refactored version.
Yeah.
So everything would have to go in the both versions at once. If we do that. Well, I guess we would anyway. If we have like just the refactored version in master, then we'd have to change them all the way backport regardless.
Right. So one suggestion I have is if that branch is like a forward porting branch as opposed to a back porting branch, what I mean by that is it regularly takes a merge from master or whatever, and so every time you do that, if there is a true merge conflict, your version control system's going to say, "Oh, hey, there's a merge conflict here." It might make cherry picking out of that branch harder, but I think you would at least have the advantage of knowing that the approach has been validated. It might just be the minimal structural changes. I don't know. This is a big food for thought thing. This isn't like, hey, let's come up with a plan today. It's more like, let's plan for a plan. Well, I
Yeah,
wanted to raise it.
yeah, we definitely need to do it. Obviously, just based on how many questions we have right now. But yeah, I think it is something we probably should push back as a topic until Mike's here because he still has to work sort of his thing,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
then it's sort of part of also the reef priority planning and all that, which is again I wanted to push back when more people were around.
Yep.
So maybe I'll just copy paste that onto an April 26th thing on the other pad, and we'll just
Or
I'll let you do it so I don't have to mess up the date
yeah,
again.
I'll paste that in there. Um, that is an important topic because it would be nice to have it sort of all there earlier, so it's all ready and everything for reef. At the same time, yeah, I don't know. We wanted to push it back so we don't have to worry about the backports and everything. So it's a bit of a tricky topic. So there's discussion.
probably we can have like some intermediate branch, like with the current binary as it is, and then once we start with the refactoring, then we keep like the new stuff in master. So this way, if we want to fix something, we just go to this intermediate branch, we fix it there, and then we cherry pick backport.
You want to swap it? You want to have the actual master branch be the refactored one and have some other branch that's the old one?
Exactly. We have some intermediate branch that's have like the last version we had before start this refactoring. So whenever you want to fix something and backport it, you just go to this branch, fix it, and then backport will be much easier, and then have all the new stuff in master.
Okay. If we do it that way, at that point, would it be easier just to get rid of that intermediate branch altogether? Because you're going to be backporting it onto a version of the binary that is not refactored regardless. So is it there a benefit in putting those changes into a version of the binary in the immediate branch, then immediately going and all right, now I'm going to put them into another version that's also the unrefactored binary, but it's like the Quincy version now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is maybe that intermediate branch is called Quincy. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know at that point because it's so. If you're just going to put it into an unrefactored binary, just to put it into a different unrefactored binary, and we never use that middle one, you wonder that point. Because the difference is with what John was saying is that if we have the main master branch is still the unrefactored one, and that makes like the backports
Yeah.
easier, or whatever. And then we just have like a forward system for essentially bringing all that stuff to the new one, and then we have this sort of refactored one we keep building up over time, and we just eventually swap over to that as like the official one near the end of the Quincy, like right before the reef release. So in that case, it makes sort of sense to have all three. But I think if we have the main master branches refactored, then at that point you'd almost just you would do away with the middle branch. You just backport the thing. It would mean that people probably have to do their own backporting though in a lot of cases. It might be harder to do any sort of batch work.
Yeah, at some point there's going to be some amount of pain anyway, because there's no way to avoid it. Whether you try to make it painful now, or you try to make it painful right before the reef branch is cut, or whatever, there's going to be some level of pain. The other thought I had, and I'll just share this again, it's just food for thought, of what if we had some kind of automation tooling to try and help with these backports. If we knew, say, that a certain section of a cephadm.py was mapped to another file, could it help generate a patch for you? This may be completely overboard, but I might as well share it since we're talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, if we got someone that worked that did that, that sounds great. I think the hard part is can we actually get that working properly?
Yeah.
Right.
But if it did work, then yeah, I'd have no problem with that. That'd be really helpful. Make everything way easier.
Yeah, so it could be like, hey, at some point this file is going to get chopped up, but you can't add dependencies yet, or all the pieces have to be in this particular directory. I don't know. There would have to be some restrictions on what you could do. So I don't know how easy or hard it is. It's just a stray thought that I had last week after the meeting. That's basically what this topic is. Stuff I thought about after the meeting. I did not want to sidetrack the Reef meeting with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it would be helpful also to try to close as much issues as we can. So this way,
Oh yeah.
we are closing them on the current version of the binary, and then when we start the factoring, if we have a bunch of them, then it's not a problem. Otherwise, we'll have a lot of backporting to do in the future.
Yeah.
Especially if we fix them in the new version.
I mean, that's definitely a good thing to have less things we have to backport later.
Yeah.
After it's refactored.
So we can work to close whatever issues we have, especially the most important ones, and then once we are comfortable with the open issues, then we start the refactoring.
Yeah, I mean, there'll always be new things. Like even the dashboard thing they were talking about, they're going to have they want a new daemon for gathering metrics or whatever. And Cephium's going to have to deploy that daemon. That'll definitely have changes in the binary or whatever. So it's inevitable we'll have big changes there. But at least we get as many things as we can, especially things that are changing existing code. Maybe if you're adding a new daemon, it might be easier to do that in a refactored version than original one.
Yeah.
Compared to stuff that like changes existing functions that we're gonna have to move around later. Maybe we're gonna split them up into different files or whatever.
Yeah.
So at least, yeah, the existing bugs at least be nice to prioritize. I was also thinking, back a year and a half ago or something, there was one other sort of big refactor where that serve.py file used to not exist actually. It used to be that the module.py had both the stuff that's in the module now and also the serve.py stuff. And then Sebastian split that into two different files and had serve.py. There, and I was wondering, would that be a good example we could look at for how maybe to do this? But I think actually that just ended up getting backported all the way back anyway. So we don't really want to do that here, so it doesn't really help. But that was something I was thinking of. The problem is that we can't, really the reason we can't backport this refactoring is just because it changes the way you have to like get the binary, or you have to use like a proper package, whatever, in the zip and everything.
Yeah.
And so we can retain the user experience now. We only want to do that in a major release. So that, unlike where the serve.py refactor, where it only changed an implementation detail and where users shouldn't have to do anything. So unless we can find a way to, I don't know, make the process of getting the binary exactly the same while still having the refactor in an older branch. I think we kind of are stuck with sort of the ideas we're talking about, like the intermediate branches or whatever.
There might be some tricks we can do. We should definitely have that as part of that bigger discussion. Let's have like a separate Etherpad or Google Doc or something that's just like, what are the challenges? What are the goals?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Intermediate steps that we might go through to get to the end goal. And then like when they occur, like
Yeah.
we cannot do X until there is a reef branch, or we cannot do Y until we've cleaned up X number of tracker issues, whatever.
Yeah, we need to do all that stuff.
No, we need a plan
That'll work.
basically.
It's always annoying because it feels like you're not doing real work, but for something long term, it usually pay off to do some upfront planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I guess it is just a topic. Yeah, we'll bring it up next week when Mike is here. They'll know a bit more about like stuff like we were just talking about. Like, oh, is it actually possible to have some way that makes it the process the same so we could backboard it? I think Mike would probably know more about that because he's working on the actual stuff. But we'll bring it up briefly, I guess, with him in the stand-ups, I guess, over the week. I assume he's back tomorrow. Just to let him know we're thinking about that. And maybe he wants to like refresh himself on that PR. I don't know if he's looked at it in some time. And then next week in the weekly, I guess we'll have like a bigger planning thing, mostly just around that. That
Looks
is one
good
of the
to me.
big brief things. All right. And that's it for what we're gonna do today. I'll move this stuff over to the 26th. Anyone have anything else you want to talk about here before we end? Nope. In that case, I'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.